Welcome to your help video for quiz 5.03. So for this quiz, you need to be familiar and know all of these postulates or theorems. So the first one that we've talked about is the alternate interior angle theorem. And that just says, basically, alternate means opposite side of the transversal and interior means inside the parallel lines. So the alternate interior angles are congruent. So 3 and 6 are congruent, 4 and 5 are congruent. For alternate exterior angles, alternate still means opposite side of the transversal, and exterior means outside the parallel lines. So for example, 1 and 8, those are on the opposite sides of the transversal, outside the parallel lines, so those are congruent. And 2 and 7 are also congruent because of alternate exterior angles. Corresponding angles, I always remember these as same side, skip an angle. So you want to be on the same side of the transversal and you want to skip one angle. So for example, angle 1 corresponds to angle 5. We stayed on the same side of the transversal and we skipped angle 3. So corresponding angles, they're all congruent, and the way you think of them is same side, skip an angle. So if I start with angle 8, I'm going to skip 6 and end up at 4. Those are corresponding. The last one is consecutive interior angles, and these are not congruent. Hopefully you can just look at these angles like 5 is an obtuse angle and 3 is an acute angle. So hopefully you can look at them and tell that they're not congruent. These angles are supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees. So if they're on the same side inside the parallel lines, they are supplementary. Those are called consecutive interior angles. Alright, so let's start solving some quiz questions. It says AB is parallel to CD, and the measure of angle 4 is 30 degrees. What is the measure of angle 8? Alright, so we need to figure out if this is one of our angle pair relationships. And this one is. 4 and 8 are same side, skip an angle, so those are corresponding angles. They kind of match up with the yellow circles down here. So 4 and 8 are corresponding angles. And because they're corresponding, we know that they are congruent. So since angle 4 is 30 degrees, angle 8 is also 30 degrees. All right, so for the next one, we have a quadrilateral, and it says that AB is parallel to CD. Sometimes it helps me to highlight my parallel lines. So those are my two parallel lines. And then that helps me too to see the transversal. They're cut by this transversal. Okay, and then it says that angle 2 is 35 degrees. What is the measure of angle 5? So we have to figure out how those two angles are related. Are they any of our special pairs? And these are on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're inside the parallel lines. So those are alternate interior angles. And we know alternate interior angles are congruent. So since the measure of angle 2 is 35 degrees, the measure of angle 5 is also going to be 35 degrees. All right, so here we're given A is parallel to B, and C is not parallel. So C is just a distractor. It's not going to have any of our angle relationships because it's not parallel. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of it. It's just in there to distract me. Which statement must be true? Okay, we want to select each correct answer. So the first one says angle 8 and angle 9. Well, angle 9 is down here in our distractor. That's not even parallel lines. They're not going to have any special relationship. So that's gone. 2 and 7. Let me change colors here and let's look at 2, angle 2, and angle 7. All right, and I should have highlighted my parallel lines. I like to highlight them. Those are my parallel lines, and they are cut by this transversal. So 2 and 7, those are on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're outside the parallel lines. So those are alternate exterior angles. And we know alternate exterior angles are congruent, so their measures do have to be equal. All right, let's check another one. 4 and 8. Those are on the same side of the transversal and you skip an angle. That's called corresponding angles. And we know corresponding angles are congruent, so those measures are going to be equal. And then we have 7 and 10. And again, 10 is down here. That's a distractor. 7 and 10, those aren't even parallel lines, so there's not going to be any special relationship between them. All right, so in this figure, it says AB is parallel to CD. Let me go ahead and mark those. And then it says the measure of angle 6 is 75 degrees. What is the measure of angle 3? Okay, so those are same side interior angles. And same side interior angles are supplementary. So those are going to add up to 180. So the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 6 has to equal 180 degrees. I think I actually had that down here. Yeah, I did. Okay. And then I can just plug in what I know. I know the measure of angle 6 is 75 degrees, so I'm going to substitute that in. And then I'm going to solve for the measure of angle 3, so I'm going to subtract 75 from each side. Now, you didn't have to write out this pretty pretty equation. You could have just taken 180 minus 75, and you would have gotten the same thing. So the measure of angle 3 is 105 degrees. And then the last one is a proof. Yay! So it starts off by giving us that M is parallel to N. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight those. And it tells us that the measure of angle 1 is 120 degrees. And our ultimate goal is to prove that the measure of angle 6 is 60 degrees. Okay, so we have our given information. And then it says angle 5 is congruent to angle 1. So let's look at those angles on our picture and figure out why they're congruent. So angle 5 and angle 1. Those are on the same side and I skipped an angle. That's called corresponding angles. Those are congruent because they are corresponding. And then because they're congruent, we know their measures are also equal. That's that congruence postulate. And so we know the measure of angle 5 is 120 degrees. They just use substitution to plug that in. And then the next thing that we're trying to figure out is the relationship, or how do we know that the measure of angle 6 plus the measure of angle 5 equals 180? So we have to ask ourselves, well, what kind of angle relationship is that? And that actually has nothing to do with our parallel lines. Those are supplementary because they are a linear pair. They form a straight line. So we know that those add up to 180 because they are a linear pair postulate. And so they are supplementary, and then you can substitute in to get your final answer and prove your proof. Good luck on your quiz, and just as a reminder, make sure you know all of your angle relationships.